The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Topic Time with Harrison Young. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to, would you believe, the final February show of Topic Time of 2024. And if it wasn't for the fact that this was a leap year, then they'd all be over already. But since it's February 29th, the rarest day of the year, I guess there's something to be said for that. And we have an awesome show tonight. We're interviewing another comic book designer, and he's going to talk all about what he does. And he's in the Washington State. We've done several shows there lately. It seems to be a new stronghold for Topic Time Nation. But of course, before we get to him, got to read these incredible underwriters, and then we will commence per usual. So we have the Salon Giovanni in Marshfield. We have Juice Station in Pembroke. They're a new one. We have Madigan Land Surveying in Middleborough. We have Tom Otto in Middleborough. We have Gregory Scott Jewelers in Middleborough. We have Hanover House of Pizza in Hanover. They make delicious Sicilian pizza, Greek salads, and have awesome people working there, and they deliver. We have Genuine's Inspection in Middleborough. We have Diesel Plus Unlimited in Whitman. We have Bulldog Sports Cards in Middleborough. We have Johnny Macaroni's Restaurants, 3 locations, 2 in East Bridgewater, 1 in Halifax. We have Lynch's Towing, Auto Cycle, and Truck Center in Brockton, 1 number for towing, 1 number for projects. My pal Lynchy over there is always looking for new scrap metal, wheels, anything to do with transportation. He handles it all. We have Myers Convenience Store in Brockton. They just started with us. That's great to have them. We have Cornerstone Barbershop in Pembroke. We have Boom Box in Middleborough. We have One Good Credit in Brockton. We have Crazy Axis Rec Center in Hanover. We have Good Old Dave's Automotive on Route 58 in Hanson. We have Grant's Rental in Bridgewater. We have Easton Fitness in the Village Shops in Northeastern. We have Eli's Auto Care in Taunton. We have Doggy Boutique, all breed professional grooming for dogs and cats, run by my great next door neighbor, Debbie Siddell in Brockton. We have Kingston Auto Body in Kingston. We have A1's Tire and Auto Center in Brockton, always in search of new service riders and techs. And even if you don't know how to do it, send someone by that does. We have Personal Best Karate in Southeastern. We have the Gunner and LLC, the Second Amendment Freedom Store in Middleborough. We have New England Floorscapes in Middleborough. We have the Rug Resort in Northeastern, cleaning today for a healthier tomorrow. We have RW Carpet and Flooring in Norton, covering floors for 50 years. We have DNS Auto Works and Collision Specialists in Abington on Route 58. And we have Joe's Diner in Taunton. I want to thank you guys very much. And now, Mr. Caleb Palmquist, how you doing? I'm glad Jeffrey set the show up. You have a nice little office there. So how you been? How's it going?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. And you design a comic strip, or do you design a whole bunch of them? You tell me, how's that work?
I'm a writer for a bunch of comic books, and the one that I am currently promoting is called Dragon Grit, which is a fantasy western in which the cowboys ride dragons.
Okay, that's different. That's very original. I've always, as someone who's always felt that I've had a pretty darn good imagination for stuff where you can crisscross ideas. You've definitely hit a pinnacle, I'd say. So
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. So what I like to do with every guest is to profile them, talk about what they were like as younger people. You don't look too old. You look like you were 20-something. If am I sort of in the ballpark?
I'm 33, but that's very flattering.
Oh yeah, good. Well, that would have been my next guess. I noticed people are aging slower. Like you wouldn't believe. Like a couple of weeks ago, I had these 2 young girls on from Nashville that look like teenagers, but they're both in their 20s. So
wow.
We're all drinking from the fountain of youth, which is pretty sweet, obviously. So tell me about your youth, younger days. Tell me about where you grew up and how you got into illustration. Now, do you do your own illustrations too, or do you just?
No, I'm just a writer. Yeah.
Oh, just a writer. So do you work with a team of people? I assume.
Oh yeah, yep. I always work with a team, usually an artist, and then I have a letterer who does all my books. So.
Okay. Well, tell me about all right, let's talk about the team that you founded together. I assume that that you've sort of found Did you pick them? Did they pick you? Or was it a mutual thing? You tell me.
For this current book, I've been working with my letterer for ages. Years ago, he worked on an anthology project that I also worked on, and then he and I connected, and then he's just been lettering all my books and designing all my books for me ever since. His name is Dave Lentz. And
Okay.
the artist I've been working with for this book is called, her name is Kay Woolheiser.
Okay.
And she's someone whose work I had just admired. And I sent her a message online and said, would you like to work with me on this idea I have? And she said, yep. And then we made a King Arthur comic together
Wow.
last year. And then we had so much fun working together that we decided to team up again for this new book.
Was it the King Arthur comic? Was that kind of a parody of King Arthur? A parody of,
No, it was actually, so I studied medieval literature in college, and I
okay.
and I kind of had that thing where every time I saw a King Arthur story, I was like, this is not how I would have done it.
Okay.
And so this was my attempt at a King Arthur story, and it's not a parody. It's very much like an adaptation
I've
of
heard-
a 13th century Arthurian romance. So
okay.
yeah.
Well, the reason I brought that up is because let's say, if you screwed it up and the characters didn't like the way it came out, they can't sue you because they're all dead, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's incredible. Where did you go to college?
So I went to college at WSU, which is Washington State University, in Pullman, Washington.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you in the Seattle area around there?
So I'm actually on the other side of the state.
Okay.
So I'm about 4.5 hours, if there's no traffic from Seattle.
Wow, that's
Um,
you're pretty. It's interesting. Last week we did a show to Washington State too, a musical show, and the Wi-Fi was terrible there. But I think it had something. Well, it had something to do with there was an event around the country. I don't know if it was terrorism or some kind of a cyber lapse or whatever. But people weren't able to use their phones, and it might have affected it. But today it's perfect, which is great. All right. Well, tell me about yourself as a kid. Where did you grow up, and how did you start getting into writing?
Sure. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist, like a Sunday comics cartoonist. It
Okay.
was my big dream.
Where did you grow up?
Um,
Where did you grow up?
so I grew up in Spokane, Washington,
Got it.
same place I live now.
Yep.
And um, yeah, so my dad always worked for the newspaper. And so, of course we always got the newspaper, and, as time goes on, of course, fewer and fewer people get the newspaper at their house. But
I still do, but I
yeah,
know what you mean. I know it's a
yeah,
digital age we live in. I get it. Okay.
right. And so I always just was really fascinated by the comic strips, and so I'd always be drawing my own comic strips. And then as time went on, I decided that I would like to actually make movies.
Well,
And I briefly went to film school
where?
um, in
What's,
Montana,
oh,
in Bozeman, Montana.
okay.
And I ended up deciding while I was in film school that the part of movies that I really liked was the writing.
Okay.
And I decided that it was way too cold in Montana for me. So I left, and I went and I studied writing, and I studied literature, which I
Where?
mean,
Another different college
it,
for those?
at Washington State.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I
Yep.
ended up. And whether or not getting a literature degree is a good idea is who knows. But that's what I ended up doing. And then as time went on, I would write for fun, and then eventually I was like, well, at some point I just got to put something out there. So I started doing Kickstarters and just making my own stuff, making comics, which kind of brought me full circle back to what I wanted to do as a kid.
Yeah, I understand. Now you mentioned when you were a kid, did you say you were doing some illustrations in the early years, right? But you
Oh
decided
yeah.
you decided it
And
was better to leave that to other people. Is that it?
well, I still draw for fun,
Oh, right, but not
but
for your actual books, though, right?
no.
Okay.
And a part of that is just that I I think that there's so many talented artists out there who can draw better than I can,
Yeah. Okay.
and so I decided, and plus comic book storytelling, I think, is always better as a collaborative medium.
Okay, I understand. It's probably true. But now on your Facebook page, there's a pretty cool calligraphy of you. Is that your drawing, or did someone else do that?
Oh, no, that's drawn by Nicholas Torres,
Okay.
who is an artist I've worked with a lot. I asked him to draw a picture of me. So
Yeah, he did a killer job. It was sweet. Okay. All right. Well, so tell me about now. You've converted any of these? You've mentioned filmmaking too, right? Have you
Mhm.
ever? So do you produced films as well from your comic books, or are you in the process?
No,
Are you going to?
no, I don't have any plans to.
All right, hold up, back up a second. What films tell me about some of the films that you did produce, because I want to intermingle with what you do now, because I think there's a relevance and a significance between those things. So go ahead.
Sure. Well, I never made anything major. It's kind of like, when I'm in high school and college and sort of what student films do you make,
Okay,
and so I think probably some of the ideas that I had when I was in college for movies that I wanted to make ended up making their way into the comics that I made. But I was making really goofy stuff. Um, I always wanted to try to make people laugh when I was making short films.
of course.
Uh,
That's what I was hoping. And did you succeed at least? I mean, did you create
I
anything?
mean, I think my classmates thought that the short films I made were funny.
So you did.
So,
So that's good. That's what you wanted. You had to get. I mean, even if they're friends, that doesn't mean if they're not going to tell you it sucks. If it does, I'm sure they're being honest with you, and they probably were funny. Right. But the comic books you're doing now, there's nothing really so funny. I know the King Arthur thing is.
no, well, I would say they're funny. I would
Oh,
say
you would. Okay.
they're not, I don't think I pitch any of them as comedies, but I mean, I think that there's definitely funny moments,
Okay. Of course.
and I think that they're, relatively lighthearted. So, I don't write comedies, but I think I hopefully sometimes I make people laugh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever done any acting, by the way, in addition to this stuff or anything else?
Oh, no,
How
no.
about music? You ever play music, sing, dance?
I don't have a musical bone in my body, man.
Okay, I just like to cover all the bases. All right. So tell me about how many books have you turned out so far?
Oh man.
Ballpark it if
Well,
you're not sure. It sounds like it's from
yeah,
that reaction. I'd say it's a lot, right?
I've done over 20 Kickstarter campaigns.
Wow. Okay.
And I want to say that I recently finished my fourth completed graphic novel.
Wow.
If you count up all the single issues, it's probably more like getting close to 20. So
And how long are these novels? These are novels with comic images. They're all books of comic strips of comic
mhm.
events and everything, and done in animated illustrations. Is that
Yep.
right? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Now, would you ever consider converting them into film based on your knowledge of that from when you went to school or at some point?
I don't think I have the skill set. I went to
No, I
film
know maybe not by
school.
yourself, but I'm talking about with other people that might know
I
how to.
mean, if there was the opportunity, sure, yeah, I would
Well, I'm
love
just
to do that.
Well, you might want to look into it because that could be a huge stepping stone for you for your success of your work. I mean, after all, Star Wars started as a comic strip, and look at it now, even all these years
Sure.
after. Yeah, so, and it sounds to me like you sort of have the imagination of, well, whoever created, I can't think of his name, but who created the Star Wars. I'm just thinking, that just popped right into my brain immediately because that's what I mean. Basically, a lot of these science fiction genre films that become hugely popular started with comic strips. Somebody had an idea did an illustration of a world far, far away and long ago, whatever. And next thing you know, they turn it into a film, and it's like considered iconic forever. And
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I said, if the opportunity arose, I would totally work on something like that.
well, wait a minute. All right. What are you currently doing every day for your comic strips? You just write every day and then have your people illustrate and do all you.
I
How
mean,
many?
I do a lot. I would say that if you're an independent comic book creator, like writing is only the beginning
Right.
because
Of course it is.
I have to also market the book and I
Yes.
have to run fulfillment for all the like every book that goes out, I ship myself.
Wow. Okay.
Um and so that's, hundreds of books all the time. And then I have to create connections with art teams, and I have to run campaigns and all this other stuff. So I would say writing is maybe 15% of what I do.
Okay.
um and then a lot of the business stuff. I mean, in a perfect world, the writing and the creative part would be the
So
only
they're all
thing
you
I
need. I
did.
know exactly. Right.
But really and if it wasn't for all the other parts, marketing myself and shipping the books out and all these logistics things, then I wouldn't be able to have the success that I've had.
Well, obviously people are ordering them, right?
Oh yeah.
So there you
Yep.
go. Well, okay, then whatever you're doing, I mean, you obviously figured out a way to budget your time so that it works effectively in every aspect of
I mean, yeah. I hope that's what it seems like. I think I usually feel like a chicken with its head cut off.
Well, I know you got
But
to because it's still work. You got to make an effort. I understand. The same thing doing
oh
my
yeah.
show and getting guests and stuff. And well, tell me about that little office you got there. Is that your house?
Oh yeah. This is my it's a mess, but
No,
this
it's
is
not. It
my
looks like you got a whole bunch. It looks like you got everything neatly stacked. Like you got whole boxes of past scripts that you've written. All right, is
Oh yeah,
those
well
that?
those are all boxes full of comics
Right.
that I have written and that are, hopefully organized well enough so that when an order comes in or I'm doing a bunch of orders, I can grab what I need and send them out.
Exactly. Well, it
Um,
looks very organized.
oh, thank you. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
so this is where I do a lot of work and yeah, I like it. I like
Yeah.
it.
I don't blame you.
There's never enough space. I think at some point I may have to get a storage unit or something to store all the comics,
Wow.
but I think I've carved out a little comfortable space for myself.
As it should be. Okay. Now, do you have a big family, married with kids or anything like that?
I am married.
Okay.
So yep, and my wife co-wrote this new comic with me.
Oh, cool. Talk about her.
Um
Talk about her. What is now? How would you meet? I mean, this is interesting. I'm glad I asked these questions because they always bring forth more pertinent stuff. So go ahead. Tell me about your wife a little bit and how you found her. I assume that there was a creative bond between you immediately when you met her at some point, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So my wife, her name is Lorelai, and she
Okay.
is a novelist.
Wow. Okay.
And so she has written one novel, or she's published one novel, and she is currently working on another one, and she's working on a memoir right now.
Okay.
And so, obviously that was a bond we had early on, is talking about writing and creating, and then we had this idea that we wanted to tell a story together.
Okay.
And so originally it was maybe going to be a novel, but as time went on, we really decided we wanted to see the dragons in action on the
Okay.
page. And so we decided to make it into a graphic novel.
Okay. Do me a favor. Move to your right a little bit because it looks like there you go. Right. It's more centered up now. That's great. Well, do you have children too?
I have a couple stepkids, yeah.
Oh, Steph, her
Yep.
kids. I got you. All right. Well, I mean, I assume they're part of. They must be part of it. They must be helping you guys out with the creative stuff as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. My stepdaughter is very into the comics, and she actually will read the comics before they go to print to check them
Okay.
for spelling errors.
Sweet. Now, what? She must be a young kid, right? She must be in her
Yeah, it's 13.
13. All right.
So
So basically, now look. Now I have to ask because some people that create comic strips create them kind of raunchy. You don't like. There's nothing there that's can't be read by younger kids, right? That's considered
correct, correct.
non-offensive. Okay, good.
Anything with my name on it is not necessarily all ages, but certainly appropriate.
Appropriate, right? That's what I mean. Okay, that's good. I mean, that way there's no you don't have to be too controversial or anything. But all right. So what? So tell me a little about it. So you've got some 20 books under your belt, and are they all? I assume they're all different. You have diverse style.
Yeah, some of those, when I say 20, I mean some of those are single issues of longer series. So, but I have a few different things. I've got um a book called Unicorn Vampire Hunter, which was my
Okay.
first big successful book, which is a fantasy book about a
Yep.
vampire, a unicorn that kills vampires with his horn.
Okay.
And then I have my King Arthur book, which
Yep.
was very successful. And then I had another vampire book called Vampire Detective in Space,
Okay.
which is a sci-fi detective story.
Okay.
Um, and I actually did do last year. I did an all ages comic, a proper all ages comic called Space Monkey Nights Go,
Okay.
which is something I co-created with my letterer friend Dave Lenz.
Okay.
That is sort of like a Saturday morning cartoon style thing about monkeys who get they get superpowers and they believe they're knights of the round table and they
Okay.
defend the galaxy.
Oh wow. Okay. That's interesting. You almost take the concept of evolution and you bring it forth to the to the future. That's kind of how that's interesting. That's wild. Okay. So it's all yeah. I mean, your imagination is definitely pretty far and wide when it comes to writing this stuff. So what does Mr. Lenz do exactly? He's an illustrator, or is he one of your
Oh,
co-writers?
Mr. Lentz is the well, he does illustrate. He says he does not like to draw. So what he does is instead he's a genius and
Okay.
he does comic book lettering. And of course,
Yeah, you
anyone
really got
who
you need good graphics. Is that it? What you're saying?
oh yeah.
Okay,
Yep, yep.
I
So
get it.
anyone who's familiar with comics knows how important the lettering is,
Right.
and so he letters all of my comics. And then a couple years ago, he asked me if I wanted to co-create a book with him, and so that's where that all ages book came in. But he's on every one of my projects, so he's and he does a ton of books in the indie comic book space.
Okay.
Um, so if you've backed a book on Kickstarter, chances are that he had something to do with it.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
So apparently he works with a lot of other people too, right?
oh yeah, yeah.
Now, are these people you're working with? Are they all? I mean, do you work with them by Zoom, or are you in physical contact with all of them as well, or both?
It kind of depends. Some of them I have met in person, but most of them I've never met. Most of
Okay.
them, it's a very online
Yes, of course,
kind of
online.
relationship. But I mean, the world has gotten so much smaller
Oh, it has.
that I mean, I talk to some of the people that I work with online more often than I talk to my real world friends.
Of course, yeah, that's right. I wonder if your real world friends are jealous now. Probably wonder what
Yeah,
you're doing.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, so what is your, I mean, this is your, what does your regular schedule look like now then? Usual Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, just pretty much continuing this stuff, what you're doing now
Oh
with your,
yeah, just trying to trying to keep myself I you know splitting my time between the business stuff and the writing stuff and
the marketing.
uh the marketing.
Tell,
So
tell me how you market your books. How does that go? Is that pretty much all online too? I guess social media mostly?
yeah, it's mostly online. I would say through social media. I have an email list, which is kind of my silver bullet. That's
Okay,
kind of the thing that um, people sign up for my email list and then they get all the information about when I'm launching and all that kind of stuff. But then I do a lot of social media. I do a lot of promoting through things like this, like podcasts,
of
and
course.
then I also do a small amount of promoting in person when I go to comic book conventions.
Oh, okay. And how many?
But
Tell me about how many of those have you attended? About do you go all over the country for that? For those?
before the pandemic, I used to.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And then the pandemic really cooled me on it. And since then, I've done a few. So lately, I don't really leave the Pacific Northwest anymore for
Right.
conventions, although I just applied for the New York City Comic Con, so I'm
Well, that's going
hoping
to
to
be
go to
great.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then probably total since I've been doing comics, I've probably gone to like 25, but
Okay.
in the last couple of years, I'm only doing one or two a year.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
but I'd like to start going to more. It is they can be exhausting,
Oh, I know.
but they're a great way to meet people, and it's always a good feeling to have someone come up to my table who's read my books and wants the new issue and is excited. So that's always great. So I try to go to conventions when I can, but like I said, it can be very exhausting.
Before COVID, had you traveled all over the country for these events?
Yeah, so before COVID, I was living in Florida
Okay. Wow.
and I would go I would definitely fly for events. I was doing my best salesman routine back then.
Yep.
And and I would say that I got burnt out. Like in
Oh,
2019, actually, I went to a ton of conventions. It felt like every weekend I was going to one,
okay.
and it was just a lot. It was fun,
But
but now I'm a little bit choosier. I like to go to the ones that I know I'm going to have a good time at, and that I'm going to meet interesting people at, and that aren't going to break the bank to get there.
I understand. Well, and you've already established yourself by going to those previous ones. You'd already done a lot of the legwork that's brought you the success that you have, which is, it's always nice to know that once you paved the path for yourself, and while it wasn't an easy one to dig, once it's dug and the path is there, people see you on the path and they want to meet you on the path. Hey, I just made that up. That's pretty clever, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And on that note, Caleb, we're down to the final 5 minutes of the show. I hope you had fun talking to me.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I hope we covered as much about you as we could. You're a very imaginative young man, and you're an honor. It was an honor to have you on the show. And Jeffrey did a nice deal getting you on for me. So what I want you to do is, in the remaining time, like I said, give shouts out to people that are going to see the show. Just condense them, and then we'll wrap the show up with my snapping the way we began it. So go ahead.
Sorry. What is it that you?
Give shouts out to people that you know that are going to see the show. Friends.
Oh, sure.
People in your team, whatever. Your wife, your kid, your stepkids,
All
whatever.
Right. Let's go ahead and say hi to Lorelei Jonason, who is my co-author and my wife, and also Kay Woolheiser, who's the artist on Dragon Grit, and David Lentz, who is the letterer for that book, and all my fellow comic book creators out there.
Okay. Well, if you had a good time with me, what I want you to do is to let them tell all those people about my show, and maybe we can get them on as guests too. I'd love to have them on. You have I guess you got to go through Jeffrey, but have him contact me for them, and then if they want to do the show, we'll get them on either by Zoom or in person. I of course prefer the in-person interview, but we can go anywhere with Zoom, so it frees us up for this, as you know. Now, is there anything coming up in the near future that you want to mention that you might have overlooked that might be important? But I always ask every guest that, but if not, that's fine. I just want to make sure.
I would just say that I've got Dragon Grit is my new comic book. It's coming to Kickstarter on March 5th. So depending on when you're listening to this, you can go to Kickstarter and search Dragon Grit, and you'll find it.
That's perfect, because I think today is February 29th. We'll be editing the show on March 5th. That's the day we edit it, because that's next Tuesday. So it works out.
All right.
Okay. And now I'm going to ask you when we wrap the show up in a minute, will you let my tech guy take a pic of us for Facebook, and then I'll try to connect with you on Facebook and tag you in it. Would that be all right?
Sounds good. Sounds great.
All right, Caleb, great job. Thanks, folks, watching. We're already through the month of February for 2024 for Topic Time, and we're wrapping it up and rolling out. More great Topic Time episodes to follow. See you next time. Take care. Have a great one.